Bradford, Pennsylvania. This is actually the old Holley carburetor factory that we're in right now.
When I was 8 years old, I started snowboarding. Also, I came from a skiing family, so same thing, kind of wanted to go against the grain of the older people in the family, so picked up a snowboard and from there on, 25 now, haven't stopped yet.
I've always been, had the DIY attitude about things and just wanted to start something, build it up from the ground and, work for ourselves and work with our friends and see what happens, take on the adventure. It was definitely exciting, quitting your old job and just kind of quitting your old life in a way and moving up here just to dedicate it to this and get to hang out with your friends and see your family every day. I definitely like hanging out in cities and spending time there, but it's always feels nice to get back here. It's real laid back.
If you mountain bike, kayak, rock climb, anything like that, this is certainly, kind of a mecca.
Don't be afraid to ask for help from other people or don't be too proud about anything. If you can work under someone, learn everything as much as you can from them. Talk to other people that started businesses and get their input on everything. There's a lot of egos in the whole sport of things, which is goofy. So we try to steer as far away from that as possible and just be normal dudes, I guess. Treat everyone, equally, even if they're on skis. It's all right. So many. I don't even know where to start. The equipment, we had to do all kinds of maintenance. We had to pretty much redo everything.
Tracking down people to find materials.
Building the boards, our focus has been just making the best boards we can. So just constant R&D and just tweaking things and just trying to learn as you go and getting help from other people. So that was definitely a hard part of it. And then just the whole business side, which we're not businessmen. My parents have been a huge help with that, just learning how business works and just learning about the industry, the insides of the industry and the stuff you don't want to know, but you have to know. It was love. Her name was Anne. I love her. It was 2 years ago, I think, at Ellicottville at Fall Fest, and so she bought 2 of them for her kids, and we were so pumped. And then later, she was working at Dina's, and pretty sure we spent all the money that we made at Dina's that night just buying drinks and food and celebrating. So, like I said, we're not the best businessmen. We're learning, but it was rad. We had to celebrate. A lot of companies, there's not many manufacturers of snowboards. There's a few real big ones in Europe and in China, and they make a lot of different brands in those warehouses, those factories. And the fact that we own our own factory and everything's hands-on is big for us and for everything. The boards are made by snowboarders, not just dudes working 9 to 5. good feeling. It's definitely self-rewarding, like seeing something from start to finish that you and your friends did with your hands and built from the ground.
I've always enjoyed not only snowboarding, but actually looking at snowboards, going into snowboard shops, and it's nice just to look at the craft, the artwork, what goes into it, and to actually be a part of that, and to produce something like that it's a huge accomplishment and good feeling.
Definitely do your homework on it, be prepared.
Stay true, I would say. I always emphasize connections, making connections with other people, treat other people well. Definitely just be nice. I think it's as simple as that. I think you can go a pretty far distance just off being a good person to other people and networking and making solid connections.
Don't be afraid to do your own thing. Take your time, make sure you really want to do what you're doing, and don't let anyone else tell you that you can't.
Don't settle.
The difference between letterpress printing and other forms of printing is that you feel the impression in the paper. I mean, you're using a press to actually press a printing plate into the paper to leave an impression. And when people feel a letterpress print, they immediately know that it's something different. My biggest inspiration was really just because I love to make art with my hands. I mean, ever since I was little, I would paint pictures or, do crafts or glue paper together. And that's why I went to school for architecture, because I loved to design and make things. And when I realized that I could design and make something for myself or for somebody else that somebody could feel and hold and might be something useful for them, that's what I really wanted to do. And to have control and be able to do that myself was the biggest inspiration.
It was the equipment that really inspired me. I worked as a manufacturing engineer. I did industrial automation with robotics and things. And I looked at these presses. They were 100 years old, and they were in service, operating, making businesses money for 75 years. And I looked at things I was making, and they were obsoleted within 3, 4, 5 years. And it was something about this equipment that I really fell in love with. It's very romantic to think that someone stood at this press and spent years learning how to master it, and then made his living to feed his family and send his kids to school from this equipment. And I didn't want to see it go to a scrapyard, and I didn't want to see the profession of letterpress printing be confined to history books or to old timers. I wanted it to live on.
Well, the moment that we sold our first custom product, I remember very vividly. I had made some coasters for my parents' anniversary, and I kind of just thought, well, I'll just put a listing on Etsy where we sell a lot of our items online, and who knows, maybe somebody will see it, maybe we might sell something. And up until that point, we had talked to each other while we were learning how to print and said, can you imagine if we were printing this for a customer, how stressful it would be? So one day we got an order from the coasters that I put online, and they wanted to get custom coasters printed. So of course I would email back and forth like I knew exactly what I was doing and trying to make it seem like I wasn't, secretly freaking out. But we got the job printed, and after that a couple more jobs came in, and then pretty soon it just became second nature where we weren't scared to do it anymore. And I don't think I'll ever forget the first job, just because it was so scary.
both had careers, we had good full-time jobs, and we had a house and new cars, and we were doing great. But we started getting into printing and we realized this is a lot of fun. We love doing this. And the orders started coming in. You know, people wanted us in their lives to make wedding invites and coasters for anniversary parties and business cards and everything like that. And it was amazing to us. And eventually in about 2010, we sat down and we looked over the numbers and we said, if we move back home to the Pennsylvania wilds, we can support ourselves with our business because of the lower cost of living. And I think that's where we really realized that we might have something here. This was a good idea to start the business.
When we lived in New Jersey, we kind of got tired of the hustle and bustle. I mean, we were each commuting an hour each way to go to work, and we didn't have family around us. And also, it was really expensive to live there. So we knew that we wanted to come back here, not only because of the cost of living was lower, but because our families were here. And this was the area that we truly felt was where we belonged.
I have a bachelor's degree in manufacturing engineering, and I went into that and I realized that it was something I loved. I loved doing it. But you have to remember to remain agile with your career. Never feel like you are chained to the education you have or the job you have. There isn't many jobs that will last you a lifetime anymore. You have to be able to be agile enough to change your career directions when it needs to be done or when you want it to be done. I think the best part about growing up here would have to be the access to recreation, to the outdoors that I never realized I had until I moved away and lost it. All the national forests, the state parks, all these access to trails and hiking, biking, canoeing, kayaking, ATV trails. These are things that I took for granted until I left and didn't have them. All we wanted to do was move away. Once we moved away, almost immediately we were scheming a way to get back.
For me, when I was younger, the national forest was in our backyard. So, you know, you could just roam around and get into mischief or do whatever, and not realizing that you were kind of learning life lessons just by being able to do those on your own. And like I said, the other biggest thing that I didn't realize until I didn't have them was the mountains. Because I grew up here and you're always surrounded by these tall mountains. And then I went to school in Virginia where there's also mountains. And then I went to New Jersey and all of a sudden I would look around the horizon and there wasn't any. And that was my favorite part about coming home, was just to be able to make the drive across the state and slowly come into the valley. The biggest challenge really was basically just learning how to print. I mean, like Joe said, these printers from the past would spend years before they were even allowed to touch a press. They would have to apprentice. And here we decided one day we want to be letterpress printers. So we kind of had to crush everything into a short amount of time and just kind of teach ourselves, and we had some mentors, and just learn how to use the equipment and learn how to use it right, because if it's not right, then it's not going to look good.
We've done about everything wrong that you could. We've learned how not to print, but we've grown from it, and our work, I believe, speaks for itself. One of the traits that I think you really need to go into business for yourself is you have to be very persistent with everything you do. You have to wake up in the morning and think, how am I going to move my business forward? How am I going to gain customer base? How am I going to sell more products? And when you're working a 9-to-5 for someone else, you always have someone over you saying, Joe, this needs done now. You know, don't forget about this. When you're working for yourself, you have to wake up every day and say, what am I going to do? How can I make it happen? And what are my goals and how do I get to them? there's not another fall guy to take the blame if something doesn't work out. That's yours, and you have to work with the challenges and grow from them and learn how to continue being successful. Great to be able to wake up in the morning and know that every minute of work you put in is directly going to affect how successful you are with your business. You're not making money for someone else or pushing their agenda forward. It's your agenda.
The best part about today's age is that because of the internet, we can live where we want to live, and we can do business all over the world. I mean, we ship to different countries all the time, and they don't know that we're living in this tiny little village. They have no idea, but that's kind of like our little secret.
Aaron started me on my adventure into bicycles.
Sold him his first Cannondale in '97.
Yeah, and so I got into riding mountain biking around here on a lot of the dirt roads and some of the single track that we had at the time. And I got really into it to the point where I decided that I wanted to figure out how to have a job working with bikes. Ended up going to a bicycle school in Oregon to be a certified mechanic. And then while I was living in Pittsburgh, worked in shops for the 8 years that I was down there.
BMX bikes, growing up in high school, me and some friends, we got into that, and that's what we did from the last day of school till school started back. We were at building jumps, trails. I never moved away. I grew up here, enjoyed it here. There's enough stuff around here, kept me busy. Out of high school, I worked for a local bicycle shop and got a job there, and the rest is history as far as bicycles go.
I lived in Pittsburgh for 8 years. My wife went to school at Pitt, and we moved down there when we were younger, in our early 20s. Just there was more going on. I always had that draw and that pull to want to move back to the area. I love the woods. I like to be able to get out into the middle of nowhere fast, and that's part of the big draw for me to come back. And Aaron and I had always talked about opening up a shop and doing something like this. The catalyst was when my son was born, wanting him to be able to experience the same things that I grew up enjoying, and want him to have an appreciation for the outdoors and to enjoy everything that I grew up with. Everything that was going on with the PA Wilds and how there was a big push for tourism in the area. Living in Pittsburgh, talking with folks down there and knowing that folks like to travel up here, and then talking to people down there that had no idea that we had such a gem in the area that was so close, that it was just encouraging.
Everything from just small, tube changes to in-depth, complete rebuild tune-ups, custom-built wheels. We do suspension servicing and that sort of thing, and also new bikes with Cannondale and Rocky Mountain. We do new bike sales also. And then we're a hub for any kind of trail information for the area. The business side of things, the actual running the business is hard. Keeping track of all that kind of stuff is just both coming from, we've worked on bikes and done this for a long time, but actually now running our own business and having to keep track of all that is probably the hardest part about it.
I think the most rewarding part about it is being your own boss, being able to make your own decisions and make things happen and be passionate about it. The more passion that you have for it, the more rewarding it can be for you.
Use your imagination, just have fun with it,
Yep.
and you can have a lot of fun being your own boss.
Being able to help somebody out to keep something rolling. we've seen a steady build of business over the time that we've been open. It's been encouraging how we were kind of embraced by the community and the support that we've gotten from the community, and being downtown, I think has helped out. I think that a lot of people are encouraged by the fact that there's younger folks taking a stab at it, being involved and trying to have a part in what's happening in the area.
We offer canoe and kayak rentals. We span a 107-mile stretch of the Allegheny River from Kinzua Dam to Emlenton. We also do backpacking gear rentals, and we have a number of guided trips and events that we do here at the shop. I always wanted a reason to move back home. I was born here. In my previous life, I was an air traffic controller in the Navy for 8 years. I was a few classes shy of my master's, ready to go into the FAA, and they had a hiring freeze. And I was actually in my basement in Anchorage, Alaska, reading the Warren Times-Observer newspaper online at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I found Allegheny Outfitters for sale. And thus sort of began the adventure of moving home with 3 kids and just kind of jumping in feet first and, making a go of it. Warren is special because not only is it the gateway to the PA Wilds and the Allegheny National Forest. I mean, the National Forest is a 500,000 acre playground in our backyards here, with some really beautiful hiking, backpacking, fishing, canoeing, kayaking opportunities. And Warren itself, has the river running through it. We've got the Allegheny River, it's National Wild and Scenic designated. We've got some amazing islands to camp on here. Crowell's Island is 96 acres, Thompson Island is 67 acres. I mean, some of the best camping that you can do. I'd live out there if I could. Family come paddling through Allegheny Outfitters. They went on a 3-day trip. It was mom, dad, and 2 daughters. One was 7, one was 5. They went out on a 3-day trip, just a little 7-miler, just to get the kids used to canoe camping. Well, they left. It was one of those years, every weekend it rained. It didn't stop. They came back 1 day early. I gave them a list of trails, gave them a list of places to stay. They went on their way, never thought anything of it. 4 weeks later, I was hiking up Bent Run Waterfall out near Kinzua Dam, and as I'm going up, who's coming down? Mom, dad, 2 daughters. And I was like, hey, what are you guys doing here? And they said, well, we decided to make the drive from Pittsburgh because we couldn't finish all those hiking trails. So we've been coming back every weekend since to finish them up. And I could tell you 30 other stories just like that, that just kept on, little light bulbs that kept on going off in our, in our everyday life, that finally we just decided, you know what, let's do the outdoor store, let's jump in, let's, get it rolling. With a 500,000 acre national forest in our backyards and a river running through it, we should be able to, buy some good gear here to be able to get us out there. There's a lot of help locally. We went to the Higher Ed Council and took a business plan writing workshop that lasted 10 weeks through the winter. There's so much free help out there. And of course, going to whatever industry you're looking to be in, find your local experts on that and pick their brains and ask them questions and, certainly, just go after it. I guess you just can't give up, and that's in every aspect. You got to be willing to put in a ton of work. If you're not working, the business is not working. Find something you love, expect to work really hard, but if you love it, it won't feel like work, which has definitely been my case. We have guided women's trips, and a lot of these ladies are, they're in their 50s or 60s, and they've never kayaked, never canoed, and you get them out there, and then they just end up with this love for the water, and it just translates into love for the outdoors, and you can just see it changing, who they are and how they feel about themselves, and then it spreads to their family and, to their kids, and yeah, getting people outside, hands down, getting them in the fresh air, in the green. First came here and bought the livery. We lived along the river for 6 years, and I always, every single day, we kept journals and we would go out on the river and whatever we saw, we'd draw pictures, we'd write it down. So I've got stacks and stacks of journals. Well, in our off time in the winter, we bought a 6-color printing press to start printing t-shirts because we had this downtime. So my daughter Lily, at the time she was 3 or 4, and she wanted to, I was printing some shirts and she said, you know, can we put my birdie on a shirt? And I said, yeah, sure, you know, we'll put it on a shirt. Well, I put it on there, and it looked so cool, so I wanted one too. So I printed myself one, and we both went to the hardware store, and we're in there maybe a half an hour, and 5 people came up to us within that half hour and said, wow, where'd you get that shirt? I really like that. And so that was the beginning of the designs of it. As far as the growth goes, I definitely, it's been exciting, you know, up to this point. We're excited to see where it goes. We started it in 2009. We do a 5-day river cleanup. We shut down the livery for a week. I'll be honest, like the first year, I thought most people would come and they'd take a canoe trip, and if they saw something floating by, they might grab it, which was not the case at all. I mean, I was overwhelmed. It gives me chills just thinking about when I got back on day 1 of the very first year that we had it. I knew we had something huge because, I mean, I got back to the most enormous you know, pile of junk I have ever seen in my life. Not only are you cleaning up the river, but 2 things come from it. One, you're creating stewards. So people are, it's like they've taken ownership of the river. So when they see somebody that's out there, you know, and if they're littering or anything like that, you know, they now have ownership of the river.